in-house, like on your book, that's a really good opportunity too. But yeah, we can take up more time on that in the future.
You broke up for a second, Rodney. Did you say on the fee side, how do you guys typically structure it?
We generally do a flat fee. So if we have the 401k, then we'll do maybe like 10 or 15k for the non-qual on the side, depending on the size of the client. And like, but we try and get at least 10k in.
And that just covers the initial design of the program, the RFP on the vendor or the administrator, and then helping to oversee if it's funded with mutual funds, helping to oversee the investment lineup, which presumably you just keep in line with the 401k.
Yeah, from then on out, it's pretty much running the normal setup. We have a couple of vendors that we work with. I'd be happy to share the ones that I think are doing a good job, but it's like big and small market. And then once it's set up, there's not a ton of work with them. Usually the education requirements are a little bit higher depending on the number of people. And then the whole separate conversation with non-qual plans where there's a lot of potential money is with COLI, both for the client and potentially for you. But depending on the funding, that's where a lot of advisors will make their real money.
Yeah.
Well, I know, Tyler, you had sent out a few topics, and we'll capture Nate's for a future call as well. Can add that in. But I'm seeing on the screen governmental plans and executive compensation, and then comp. And I've heard this come up a few times, 50 to 100 million for plans. This we can go into these two topics, or we can make this free form, right? It's the first meeting of the year. Does anyone want to, whoever really brought up these topics, want to kick it off and get the ball rolling? Or bring up something you want to talk about?
I agree with Nate on the deferred comp plans. I'm starting to do more and more of them. I still feel like a novice, but to Rodney's kind of point, I'm just kind of saying yes to everything and figuring out as we go. I think that's half the battle right there. And then also focusing on the governmental plans. For those of you that are doing them, it's a big focus of mine. How are you prospecting them? What does that look like? And as far as servicing goes, I mean, it's pretty similar to what we're doing on the K side, just with the exception that it's non-ERISA, and there's a few little things you got to be aware of. But curious to hear more on that.
Yeah, Kyle, I'll reiterate that we're starting to get into non-qualified deferred comp, and learning as I go, and it's like not sure how to charge, not sure how to broach it sometimes. And it's nice we have a desk in Florida that could help with it. But still, it's coming up more and more.
I'll maybe quickly comment on the governmental side. It's not, I mean, we maybe have a couple like quasi-governmental that we, do their 457B, 401A. It's not an area of focus. From what I've been told, it's extraordinarily sticky, which is saying something for what is already a very sticky business. But I'd be curious what the major value prop is, even though I think we all agree that in like the fiduciary piece, while important, is not always where we add the most value. And in the governmental space where it is non-ERISA, there isn't necessarily the same threat of fiduciary liability like what exists in the 401k and 403b space. And so I'd be curious, A, how do you prospect when there's no 5500s? And then B, how do you open the door when there isn't that sort of looming threat? Those would be the pieces on the governmental side, but I'd love to be able to break in. It seems like a little bit of an old boys network, but once you're able to break through, there's plenty of fat on the bone for you.
I gotta speak through it. Bill, sorry, go ahead.
I don't have much to say on it because a lot of the stuff you said, Nate, I agree with. It's like 401ks in the old days. There's no filings. It's Wild West. It's probably very profitable, which would make it easy if you can break through. But really, the only path that I've ever heard like come up to me is the Empower guys. They have like a governmental team. I think Brian Morris heads it up, and one of my contacts there, Cam Eck, does it. The only thing I know is they will go out to like conferences or like gatherings and just like begin networking there. But really, it's a mysterious kind of space. Like I've never, I really don't know much beyond that. Besides, Empower has a lot of success there, and all the other points you mentioned. So it is fascinating.
I can speak through a case study of one that I just took over last year. So it's a county plan up here in Minnesota, and we came across it because we do their health insurance for them, and so that gave us the foot in to at least have the conversation. When we first got it, they had Valak, Voya, trying to remember the other ones, Empower, and Nationwide.
Yeah.
Yep. So they were offering all four of those. And so when we came in, I mean, every single one of the funds in each of the plans was over 1% expense ratios. The actual plans themselves were charging a lot for record keeping services. So at the end of the day, we went through, we did a full evaluation of, okay, what is each provider going to bring? What will they do with their fees? We did a complete analysis of it, showed it to the city council as well as the council that oversees the county. And then we also went through and brought in, and this was all public record, right? So we had to be careful what we said and things like that. So we showed everybody what everything looked like. And the ultimate decision was we're going to consolidate down to one plan. And so we got rid of all of them. We wanted to go Empower, just given that our company does a lot of business in Empower. We know them, we know their product. Empower actually would not quote on the business because Empower currently has the state plan. And so it'd be competing business. And so they would not actually be part of the conversation. So they excluded themselves, and we ended up going with keeping everything at Nationwide. Anyways, needless to say, through everything, we were able to reduce the expense ratios basically from, I think the average weighted net expense ratio was like 98 basis points or something like that. After all is said and done, we dropped it down to 35 basis points net expense ratio. And then we saved the plan overall about 50% in fees. That includes adding on our advisory fee. And we were charging a healthy advisory fee for all the work that we're doing. Part of that is we also included a one-time free financial plan for anybody that wants it. So they're getting that, quote unquote, on the house. And then what we do on the backside for our internal accountings, we're actually, anytime we do a financial plan, we do a $500 credit from retirement over into private wealth, just so we can kind of keep track of where that money's flowing to. And we've had pretty good uptake on that. We've had a lot of people actually starting to work with us now on the private wealth side too. So through all that, the biggest pain in the ass, you guys, is like Valak, for example, had all individual contracts. So you had to basically cancel those, work through getting those rolled over. That was a pain in the butt. The Empower plan is pretty easy to kind of basically terminate that and roll assets over. Again, we had some people roll their money over to their advisors outside of the plan. That's perfectly fine. But we were able to capture quite a few of them. And now, honestly, that plan is going to be running on coast for a while because we got investment expenses down to the point where we needed to. They're all really good funds in there. And now it's really just focusing on employee education. So now we're doing quarterly meetings just to get in front of all the employees, remind them that they've got this financial planning benefit that they can utilize, and then, encourage them to attend different, educational meetings on budgeting, mutual fund 101, things like that. So that's kind of where we're at, and that's where we were able to provide value. So we ended up saving the county over $150,000 a year in expenses that goes directly back to the participants and the county. So pretty substantial savings there. So there's ripe opportunity for all of you guys. It's just a matter of how you get in the door.
Kyle, did you have to submit a formal RFP or go through like a vendor review? I know a lot of times with Governmental, they put you through the works.
Yep.
Did you guys have to do anything like that?
RFP, no, but vendor review, yes. So we basically had to go in front of the council again and basically present our case as to why they should hire us, what we can do, what the value we can bring, all that. So yeah, we did have to go through the vendor review.
makes me think of something. This was quite a while ago that we were first looking at governmental plans. It was before like this big recent push with AI and ChatGPT and whatnot. And one of the immediate bottlenecks we identified was just around responding to RFPs because they were so comprehensive, and we don't have like a dedicated team to just answer RFPs. And I know at the time there was like starting to be RFP technology that could kind of like you could just upload a bunch of answers and then it would just match like the right answer with the right question. Has anybody explored something like that? And I would imagine it's significantly better now in this sort of post AI world.
I have not, no.
Okay. Bill, maybe that's something you can invent.
Yeah, I'll be- add
Responding
another
RFPs are the worst.
Yeah, that was one of the most torturous tasks when I was on a desk was you get this huge RFP and it would just demolish your day. Tyler, if we could add that, maybe we could sniff around, see if there's
Absolutely.
something we could bring to the group just to look at, and then if it makes sense, we can bring a guest on.
Okay, sounds good.
As far as like prospecting these go, I'd be curious if anybody else has had success in prospecting them, but really where I'm relying on right now is just our internal relationships. So any of them that we're doing health insurance for, and then what I've found is a lot of the HR staff of these cities and counties pretty much know each other because they all go to different meetings and things like that. So I'm leveraging those relationships a little bit more to get introduced to other cities and counties. And then the other thing I found is a lot of the people on some of these cities and counties, while they do have to do a public review, a lot of them know someone through, the old country club relationship type thing. And so it's interesting trying to come across some of those and how to handle them.
I met
Yeah,
a handful of the county and city employees at different SHRM conferences in Illinois and Wisconsin. And what I run into when I talk to them about, they have zero decision-making authority and like could barely get it. And then it's getting past the old boys club,
Yeah.
especially in Chicagoland area. So we haven't even made it a focus of trying to go after it. But we find there's a little bit more receptiveness for smaller counties in Wisconsin and like downstate. But it's a lot of red tape to cut through.
Yeah, and the hard part is too, and I'll say this is another part of the kind of the case study is it took us a while to get in front of the council because they had various topics that they would try and squeeze us in between. It just wasn't a priority. And once we got in front of them, we got a lot of traction going, but it was just trying to get in front of the council was the hardest part.
Kyle, out of curiosity, what is the size of that plan now that it's all been consolidated? And is it one of the larger counties in Minnesota?
It's a larger one. Yep. So the plan itself is 30 million. But keep in mind, you guys, like here you've got the para program, you've got the state plan, and so you're competing with both of those for assets, right? So these people can choose whether they want to go to the state plan or if they want to be part of the nationwide plan, things like that. So, this thing could be bigger, but you've got the competition. The state plan naturally is going to be a little bit less expensive just given the size of it. But yeah, so we're about 30 million on that one.
That's bigger than I would have expected, I guess. That was one of my hesitations is like, is the juice going to be worth the squeeze? Like for all the hoops you have to jump through and the sales cycle and whatnot. I'm just thinking, and maybe, the main market's a little bit smaller, but of the governmental plans that exist in Maine that I know of that are of good size, I think Cap Trust works with most of them, like the state of Maine plan, a couple of the big ones. So that's good to know. That surprises me. That's a lot bigger than I would have expected.
Yeah, in my opinion, honestly, these are definitely worth the squeeze. Mostly because you can charge what is deemed to be a reasonable fee, right? So you're not going to go in there and gouge them, but you can charge a reasonable fee. It is sticky, and from what I found so far, is they're actually pretty low maintenance. Most of the time when we do our quarterly reviews with these folks, they don't really pay attention. So we ended up actually now moving to semi-annual, just because most of these people don't actually care. Which is sad because they are elected officials that are here to try and do right by the employees and things like that. But so they're sticky clients. You can charge a reasonable fee and they're relatively low maintenance. So if you can get into them, I mean, these are a good one to go after, in my opinion.
And it seems like the record keepers are willing to commit more resources, especially at the employee level, than they would on like the 401k side, from what
Yeah.
I've seen, like a lot of participant services.
Yeah, I would agree.
For city of Chicago, the Nationwide sends out reps to the firehouses, to the police stations. I mean, it's billions of dollars in assets, so I'm sure there's a reason why. And they push a managed account, but I know that
Yeah.
they're sending them out on like almost a monthly basis.
Nate, I would look at what the fees are like in your area and see if you can get a read on that. It's harder. I think it's locally dependent. Kyle, it sounds like you are like in a ripe area. I would definitely go after it if that was the space that I was in. In California, these plans are the fee compression is insane because all of them RFP every 3 years and it's public record. Like City of Kern last year was a $400 million plan and the fees are like 55 on it. So if it's a $100 million plan, you're going to get like 20. But that might just be the market that I'm in. I think the advisors, on the flip side, though, most of the providers, if you have access to AMA, that's the government market seems more receptive to that for whatever reason, at least where I'm at.
Yeah, Rodney, I would agree. And most of the here's the other kind of tip I'll give you guys is target your nationwide plans because they admitted to us like nationwide just isn't looking at these. Most of these are legacy contracts and they know that they're high on fees. And so they're willing to work with you guys if you bring it to their attention, but they're not going to actively go out and be like, hey, city of blah, blah, blah. We know that we're high. We're gonna reduce your fee for you. They're just not going to do that. And so as long as you can catch it and promise to keep the business with them, they're willing to work with you on fees and bring it down and help you manage it.
That's a great point. Yeah. Interesting. I've never thought of it that way, but Nationwide's like where I've had success, Nationwide's been the record keeper.
Yep.
Is their governmental platform different than their 401k platform?
In my experience, yes. And it's more built out mostly because that's where most of their money is. They're one of the larger providers within your governmental space, so they're going to be more willing to work with you. Now, having said that, the advisor portal isn't as well built out. So I haven't been overly impressed with it, but it is what it is. There's not much you can do about it.
We don't have a single plan Nationwide, but I thought I had heard that they just recently migrated like the record keeping technology, and it was like somewhat of an unmitigated disaster. Am I making that up?
I haven't heard anything unless anybody else has, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
we
one.
have-
Oh, go ahead, please, Dan.
Yeah, we had a dozen plans with Nationwide as soon as they switched or like migrated to SS&C as like the software, whatever that part of the back end is. It's been a disaster. It also didn't help that our like best wholesaler from Nationwide left to go to T Row. And so it's kind of been very, very difficult to get in contact with a responsible party who, hits timelines. So we're actively trying to move all of our plans away from Nationwide, which is tough because they're not making that easy and they kind of see the writing on the wall. So they're slower and slower with the migration process of all those plans. So it could be different with the governmental plans. We don't have any of those. But their 401k 403b side platform is not great, and yeah, I think they're having a lot of trouble right now.
Yeah, one of our advisors, 100% of their record keeping was on Nationwide, and they went dark for months. So you're not making it up in your head, Nate. It's real. That transition was definitely rocky.
So that I guess brings up an interesting point. I've heard this from a couple other advisors that are basically like single vendor shops, and then they'll basically put that vendor out to bid every 3 years across their entire book. And then if they find that another vendor's better or cheaper, they'll flip the entire book. Is that something anybody else is doing? I think that seems like not the right thing to do. Or, maybe a middle ground. Do most people basically have their short list of 4 or 5 vendors they put in front of every single client when the time comes to an RFP and try to keep that as constrained as possible?
I can chime in here. Two thoughts that come to mind. One, the only time I see single vendor is in small plan space, right? Whether it manifests as a PAP, we're like, hey, we're just going to send everything to Vestwell, and that's for the sake of continuity. Most healthy practices I see, right, have, 2 to 5 record keepers that they use, right, that they bid against each other. The dirty secret that I know where somebody does one vendor, it's usually an insurance-based record keeper, and then they'll roll that book. I see heads nodding, so I guess it's an open secret, but they'll roll that book to, let's say, from One America to Transamerica or to like a Lincoln, whatever. And they actually get paid, you know, on the insurance side to roll that book. So like, they'll make a couple hundred grand up to $1 million, and it's disclosed, buried in paperwork, but net fees go down for the client, but it's kind of an open, dirty secret. That's the only time I've ever seen someone go single vendor and do it like that. I don't like it. I mean, you got to diversify, like, I mean, I get it because it makes it easier, right? It's all in one spot. And you get, like, with GOPS or whatnot, you get your economies to scale. But it is a little suspicious, right? If everything goes into one record keeper. Um, um, I can see both sides to it, but it is suspicious to me if somebody feeds everything to one record keeper. If anyone has a thought there.
It's just an interesting time to be like a small to mid-sized independent advisor and specialist. I mean, on one hand, you have these consolidators, right? Who, are forcing a lot of the fee compression. And on the other side, if you try to be the differentiator, to be like the true hyper independent, hyper fiduciary first advisor, and work with, be product agnostic and truly go out and find the absolute best platform for them. You don't have any proprietary products, no AMAs, none of that.
Yeah.
But then your margins continue to be compressed. It's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's just an interesting time,
Yeah.
which probably is why so many people are selling to consolidators. But
Yep, it's true. And I think though it's not entirely fair, like, because if you go to, let's say you're just a small independent guy, you go out to the marketplace and you send out your RFPs to 7 record keepers, you get 7 different prices. But one of the ambiguous things that doesn't come through is what's your relationship with that record keeper? Because depending on the relationship, you'll get a different price. So, something that in terms of best practices that we do is, one, we say, to your point, Nate, like, look ahead and pick your partner. Who's going to get bought? Who's going to stick around? Because having like a stable relationship with your client and providers is also, a very qualitative thing that, doesn't come through on the bottom line of an RFP. But then also too, like if you pick 3 partners and you show them that you're going to consistently feed them business, you will get more attention, right? So there is that strange push-pull, but my personal belief is you pick some partners that won't get sold, right? That's important. And then you stick with them, right? And if you end up spreading, and there's so many people, if you spread yourself too thin, then it's a headache for everybody. So it certainly is interesting times. And I think the name of the game is pick the people who are not going to disappear. If you want to have a stable practice, and then, show them loyalty, and, you get it in return, the relationship grows on and on. But yeah, as for selling to aggregators, that is a huge can of worms that I would love to talk about. We can do that for another call. We could do 2 hours on that. should we bring on like someone who like an Empower rep or someone for governmental and ask them what they're doing? Do you think?
I think it'd be worthwhile.
I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah,
See
I
if we
find
can
a
get
lot of value in that.
I can throw out some feelers, and if anyone has a relationship in the governmental side, I would love to look a little deeper on how they're winning business because maybe too they're going out, just like ADP gives out orphan plans. Maybe there's a way to, make some relationships there. But if you guys can't tell, I'm extremely ADD, so don't let me derail this call, please.
How many of you guys have employee benefit arms? Just Kyle.
Kind of like we have firms that do benefits and then we just negotiate grids.
And honestly, you guys, I think the really good advisors going forward are going to have it. So if you guys haven't talked about it internally, I would highly suggest you at least talk about it. And there's the one thing to keep in mind too is this is also a prospecting space like we've talked about in previous calls. So if you guys don't offer benefit services, that's fine. But make sure you guys partner up with someone good in your area that does do it, because then that's open referrals for you guys, in addition to, a second person there to help keep that business sticky for you too. So if you guys don't have it internally, make sure you've got those partnerships built out. And if you haven't, I would take this first quarter and set up some meetings with some folks and really start, establishing some relationships, because that's going to be a huge thing going forward, in trying to maintain business as well as finding new business.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I think a really easy way too, Kyle, with that is like bring up CAA. That's a great icebreaker, if you're reaching out to those folks.
Yeah, 100%. Rodney, you're
Sorry, I don't. Maybe a dumb question. What's CIA?
CAA. It's
CAA. Yeah,
Oh.
take it away, Kyle.
I was gonna say it's Consolidated Appropriations Act, and essentially what it did is it brought to light the fees that are being paid to brokers for their services for basically hawking out these different health insurance programs. And so much like we've lived within the fiduciary rule and transparency of fees, that's now forcing your healthcare brokers to do that too. And it's a huge opportunity for us to say, hey, have you looked at your broker recently? You should take a look at what they're actually getting paid and things like that. And if they haven't disclosed it, prime opportunity for you to bring that up.
Yeah. So, Kyle, it sounds like you already have it. I'd be interested for the people who don't, how you're trying to build that out. Every DCIO person, record keeper I meet with, always at the end, like, hey, the advisors that are growing, what are they doing? Like, what can I learn from them? And the response I heard every single time last year was they're partnering with healthcare providers, or the real response was they have a healthcare practice in-house. So I'm like, all right, I got a partner. So I took probably 6 meetings last year and tried follow-up, like played golf with 3 of them afterwards, took a couple of them out to eat, like, try to start building the relationship without just saying like, hey, let's refer business to each other off the bat. And it's just been way different than anything where I've built successful relationships with other referral partners before. So I would love to hear the people that don't have it in-house. How are you doing that? Because I 100% agree. I'm a little bit worried not having that referral partner built out right now.
Yeah, and we have it internally, so I'm a totally different person to talk to about it. But what I would suggest is honestly, try and throw them or bring them into one meeting with one of your clients if you can, and show them kind of that first step to say, hey, this is a great opportunity for you. Let's have a conversation with this client, and then see where it goes from there. Because if you can show them that you're dedicated to that relationship, it might be a good first step. But I agree, I wouldn't throw them 2, 3, 4 opportunities without getting anything in return. So. Just get a feel for that, but continue to build that relationship. I'll tell you guys, this is not going to be, grown overnight. And some of these guys probably already have other financial advisors that they're working with somewhere else. And you just want to be that person that they can think of immediately. The other thing you could do too is you could teach them something, right? So go out to lunch or something and be like, hey, have you talked to your clients about the CAA yet? Or have you brought this up? Or hey, this is what we do on the retirement plan side. This would work really well for you guys, and we've really had no pushback on our fees, but we've been transparent in this and that. Certain things that you guys could do to bring them value that'll maybe show that you're in it for them.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. And Rodney, Tyler's going to send you a packet that we put together with a bunch of content on CAA, like the lawsuits coming up, why it's relevant to a retirement advisor. And I would agree with Kyle's points, where go out, network with them, ask them about CAA. And you have never had, usually, like I used to for years, I would say a quote that one of our folks would say, which is a great way to get fired from your 401k plan, is to bring up benefits. Like, don't touch it, right?
Yeah.
But now through 408b2, the fiduciary duty of transparency, you under ERISA, it is completely appropriate, and I would say necessary, for you to say, hey, just so you know, due to recent legislation, there's this new fiduciary duty of transparency happened to the retirement industry, where we can take a look at your fees, make sure that you're getting a fair deal in the marketplace. And if you go out to some benefits brokers, who I agree, Kyle, are like usually out there hustling, right? Like every day is from the beginning, the way they get comped. And like make sure that they're a player that's doing the right thing. And, if you feel comfortable bringing them to your clients, and then, cultivate from there. But I really like CAA because, like, legally under ERISA, like, we all now have a right to ask these questions. Whereas before, I always thought of that quote where it's like, stay in your lane or you're going to get zapped. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mason.
Oh, I was going to say the best time we had the referral process from insurance brokers where we actually won their plan. So it was one of the largest insurance brokers in Northern California, and we went and got their 401k plan and all the education meetings. Right, we were just in front of all of the brokers. So we would tell them, this is what we're doing for it. This is what So that when they went to go to their clients, like, hey, have you talked to the these guys? They do 401k. So literally, we had hundreds of brokers. Twice a year we were talking to. So they knew what we were doing, how we were doing it, and we got so many referrals from it just because we were in front of them all the time.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I love that story. If I ever get an insurance RFP, I'm going to undercut it so hard. Unless one of you guys is the incumbent, then I'm not going to touch it. But
Rodney, those were great questions. So if there's anything I can do to help you in the future, just reach out anytime.
no, I appreciate it. I'm trying to crack that nut, and I think that's where it's going. Like, I think a lot of other things are going to become so small. Anyone have referral partnerships set up with an outside person?
CPAs.
Oh, I was thinking the health and benefits.
No, not quite.
Okay. All right.
I've never formalized anything or done like the whole pay to play thing. Yeah.
I haven't either, but I'm thinking maybe that I don't know. I was thinking like maybe that's necessary in this case. Like maybe that's the expectation where CPAs and obviously the ERISA attorneys aren't gonna.
Yeah, I had a number of brokers be like, yeah, we'll just send us your clients. We'll give you a cut of it, or a referral fee. And I don't want to work that way. Also, Raymond James would not allow it.
Rodney, the way I typically position it is I focus on the independent benefits brokers. And by independent, I mean the ones that don't offer retirement. And I position ourselves as not offering benefits as being a major reason why they should refer us. Because if a Marsh gets in there, if a Locked In, if a whoever gets in there on the benefit side, you better believe they're going to be pushing on the retirement. Or I guess if you're, the opposite is true. And the challenge is there's just very few independent benefits brokers left that operate in the space that you likely would be wanting to target. It's a lot of like people going after the minnows, fully insured market, 50 or less lives.
Yeah.
Or they're all consolidated and they offer every service under the sun. And what I'm starting to find, and the reason I brought up the topic around fee compression for that like $100 million plus space, is a lot of these people know that because there's been such a focus on fees within the 401k space, that like if you come in with something cheap on the retirement plan side, you can buy the business and then you just start hammering them with all the other higher margin businesses because, you know, again, the plan sponsor feels good. Oh, I'm meeting my fiduciary duty. This is all I care about. And then, you know, oh, I'll buy your benefits. I'll buy your wealth management. I'll buy this. And little they know, they step back and you're cross-selling the hell out of them. So that's what we're starting to run into. What is the solve for that? I'm not sure. We're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I use that example that, you know, we just got put out to bid on a plan we've had for a long time. It's like a $500 million 403B plan. They have another $150 million in legacy assets at TIAA, and the other respondent came in at $44,000 fixed. It's like, what do you do about that? Like, it's just ridiculous. There's absolutely no way they could service a plan of that size at 44,000, be a good true fiduciary without some other thing going on in that case, unless like they figured out something that no other advisor has, which I guess hats off to them. But we were, you know, able to win the business, but still, you know, we had to come down with what our initial proposal was.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get what you pay for, right?
Yeah.
Contracting one. You get 3 bids from contractors and they're all over the map.
I know. It's tough. It's like, I remember there was an article in Napa, I think probably in the last few years, that just sort of talked about this whole record keeper push around like participant services, like Empower probably being the worst offender with their personal capital purchase.
You keep going, Nate. I've got some literature on my desk.
Okay. And basically the article said, you know, advisors are somewhat to blame for that because all we did for the last 10 years is hammer record keepers on fees, call them a commodity, fee compression, fee compression, fee compression. At some point, like what other option do they have besides starting to cross-sell participants, right? Like they have to monetize the assets they record keep because record keeping itself is not a profitable business. And part of me feels like now the advisor community is going to be the next leg in that stool, that all we've talked about is fiduciary liability. You need lower fees, and they're just going to turn around, use that against us. And those advisors who have other services that are not governed with the same scrutiny that the 401k plan is are going to be the ultimate winners because they'll be able to afford to give away the retirement plan. That's my biggest fear. And I know, Rodney, you and I are talking on a panel at Napa around increasing profitability. Now I'm going to talk about that because that is the big challenge, is how do you increase profitability without cross-selling or adding other services that aren't, you know, the same sort of transparency. It's tough.
I don't want to brag, guys, but I was invited to be an Empower private client.
They're aggressive. It's crazy.
I don't think they know me before they sent this, but this is exclusive to top tier investors. And
Gets one a month.
It's retirement, it's private, it's everything. But I mean, how much more direct can you get, right? And I keep this on my desk. But yeah, I agree, Nate. Like profitability, and this will bleed into the aggregator conversation. But the first player that I heard that really started to do this aggressively was CapTrust, right? They had and they even have like a minimum for like a startups, but it's because wealth is 10 times as profitable as retirement, and I would say that it's going up. And then when you look at on the aggregator side, when all of these mature books were being bought, right? These are advisors who are in their mid 50s, early 60s. They were given millions of dollars. Do you think they're going to go out and hustle like we hustle? Like, no, they're done. And they got $10 million, but they had a 3-year earnout. So how did they meet those metrics to get a payout? Cross-sell. We know that the margins on insurance are a lot better. So I think on the profitability side, cross-selling is key. I know for us, for me, I think and I've banged this drum many, many times, is closing the coverage gap, right? People would rather work private than governmental. And when you go to a small business and show them the power of the best deduction they'll ever make, right? And have the net tax benefit of a retirement plan, right? Say, hey, I saved you 40 grand. Do you think they really care about your fee of 5 or 10 grand and a few bips? Probably not. So I think volume in the small plan space is where there's profit areas for profit. And then we pivot pretty darn quick over to treasury management. So construction is one of the largest sectors that makes up the coverage gap, followed by service, like restaurants and stuff. And since 2008, they sit on millions of dollars of cash. So it's, hey, I just saved you, X amount on your retirement plan. Do you have any cash? What's your interest on that? What are your goals on that? So like, using retirement as a point of the spear is something that I think comes naturally to this group. And I think we really are being faced with, unless you really, really strip down your service model and sell a ton of plans, you should be considering, diversifying to provide that convenience to the client. And being compensated for that additional service. But it certainly is an interesting time.
One comment on Empower, if you could have an agreement with them where they won't take participants below a certain balance or above a certain balance, it's only good as the paper it's written on. It's depending on who's they're talking to on the other line.
Mhm.
We had a big advisor out in Indiana, have ruffled some feathers with some of his participants that were already private clients. So he's hesitant about Empower now.
Yeah, Kyle, I was going to ask, you said you do a lot of business with Empower. How does that relationship work, especially since you guys have both management in-house?
So ours is pretty good. And what we do is on a quarterly basis, I have my Empower rep sending me a printout of all the money that left each one of my plans. So it tells me where it goes. Did it go to Empower? Did it go to Schwab? Did it go to Fidelity, etc.? And they can produce that report. I don't know if you have to be a certain advisor level or not, but maybe ask. But I review that. And so you can see who all they're poaching. And then that brings to conversation, okay, dude, you guys said you were being hands off. This is bullshit right here, fix it. And so, making sure you guys are reviewing that stuff will certainly help. But again, I don't know if you have to be a certain advisor size to get that or not, but it's certainly something to ask about.
Kyle, are you part of their referral partner program, whatever it's called?
Yeah, we're Premier Partner.
But they have, so for Premier Partners, they have like a referral program where if they get a call or they call somebody with greater than a certain balance, they'll redirect it back to you. Are you part of that?
Yes. And, so I'm not, but we have advisors on our staff that receive those calls, and they'll do warm handoffs at that point. So because of our partnership level, if someone calls in and says, hey, I'm looking to roll my money out or do something with it, and they've got over a certain amount, they will do a warm handoff over to one of our advisors right over the phone to have that conversation.
See, that's where I'm so torn, because I agree with you, Bill, and I think that makes sense for your company, Kyle. But one of the ways we win good retirement plan consulting business is we don't do any of that. We're not soliciting rollovers from your participants. There's no outgoing outreach. We're not receiving referral partners. We don't have employee benefits to sell you. Like, we are truly this is our sales pitch, but we are truly what a fiduciary is supposed to be in our industry. So I'm torn where it's like, I do think that is a differentiator. And I think it's increasingly a differentiator as more firms go towards the route of Bill. And I think about like that Moneyball quote with Brad Pitt, where he's like, if we try to play like the Yankees in here, we'll lose the Yankees out there. Like, if we're a small independent shop and we try to mimic a cap trust, a whoever, they're going to cream us. And so how do we move in a different direction, but also how do we protect that? That's what I mean when I say between a rock and a hard place. It's like, I feel like the way to win retirement plan business is going to be more fiduciary first, especially in that mid and large market. But at the same time, that's going to come at the cost of any internal efficiencies or other sources of revenue. And is that actually a viable and scalable business model, even though I think it's what's right for the consumer? That's sort of the catch-22.
2 points. One, I actually do like Empower, right? But these are just themes you can't ignore, right? So like I think they'll be a major player for years to come. But then like, you don't have to bat like Derek Jeter to take cash and just put it in a cash account and take 10 bips, right? Like it's not that hard to do. And if you prove yourself as a really good retirement advisor and you've demonstrated the value by helping, them as a business owner, and you go, hey, like, by the way, I helped you with this, we've noticed with similar companies that you need help with cash management. It's so much, it's such an easy conversation. Now, handling all the rollovers, like that's a little more, right? But taking a couple $1 million in cash and just putting it into an account, right? That's completely different. So, that's yeah, or wealth management, building out that beast. I'm a growth by partnerships guy. I don't think I would ever want to be tasked with building out a wealth management shop. But finding a shop, partnering with them, if they're under the same, compliance umbrella, I think that would be worth exploring and providing the option, because I think people want convenience. Like my investments counter at Merrill Lynch, I was a teller at Bank of America. I kept my accounts there. Like, I think it's a powerful human theme where people want things to be easy. So, if you can find plug and play, which the market always has out there, I definitely think it's worth exploring. If you want to build it in-house yourself, there are folks out there who are definitely ahead of the curve, because they saw that theme. But yeah, those are a few of my thoughts. Like for cash management, we look to build our own, but then you have to do you have to get your track record, you have to seed it, you have to, manage it, you have that additional risk, or you can go to like an asset mark or something like that, right? Build in a few bips, and then all of a sudden you have something in-house and you're that much stickier. But yeah, it's that push pull. It's that push pull. But I think the thing we all need to be aware of is that the operative word is convenience, like for the end client. Like start with value, start with retirement, and then say, hey, I've done a great job for you here, and expand from there. That's like my philosophy. And I really love, like, I don't think there are wrong answers, but it's definitely a way to get additional revenue, stay solvent, keep growing.
I would add on to that too, and that brings us back to the original conversation when we first started this meeting. That was around non-qual plans and things like that too. That's another way to A, add additional revenue, but B, also build stickier relationships, because now you're working with the executive teams, sales folks, business owners, etc. And now enter the wealth management conversation, and there you're continuing to build out, each one of those.
I would say it's hard to because Nate, I'm the same, right? I don't necessarily do any, individual wealth, no insurance, nothing. We do individual wealth in house, but it's just a natural occurrence, right? They say, hey, Mason, can we keep working with you on the wealth management? Well, I don't do that, right? I can give you the right person. I don't think that's a bad thing in itself, because you're just trying to provide that education, right? It's in terms of what they can and can't do. And if a wealth manager is more inclined to give them that education, I think that's the right spot, right? Obviously we can tell them what they can and can't do, but if they're getting it from a wealth advisor in terms of in-house, like, yeah, if you want to keep your money with us, we can help you. And I feel like I'm turning a lot of people away, because obviously you're going to get small accounts, you're going to get large accounts, and the larger ones, obviously it's going to be a nice referral for them. But I believe in the same aspect as you is, yep, we're a true fiduciary. We have nothing else involved, but it's just a natural occurrence where people feel comfortable with us, right? They want to keep with us. Right? Because we were able to provide that service, that fiduciary guidance. It's just natural for them to feel comfortable with us ongoing.
And I would say you deserve to capture that business because of the service in that retirement space, right? So, to turn it away just out to wherever is not only money off the table, but I would also say, more risk on, because if someone else builds a mousetrap, and they capture everything else but retirement, momentum might start moving against. But it's a fascinating topic. Someone is pounding my door down. I apologize, guys. I gotta go. Until next month.
See ya.
All good. Take care, gentlemen.
See you, boys.